And we're back once again, only on its last call. Last call to the alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com. And usually we have we talk football, we talk basketball, we talk some MMA, boxing here, of course, as you know, on this show. But we're bringing in, once again, some actors because we need some people can tell us, yeah, look, you actually need to, you can memorize lines and chew gum at the same time. Some of us can't, but some can. And this gentleman here, you'll remember him from, of course, the hit ABC show Will Trent. He plays medical examiner Peter Chin. And he has a movie coming out this Friday called Regretting You, which we're going to talk about. I give you a man who didn't start off doing acting. He was in computers and software, then became an actor. How the hell that happened? We're going to find out. I give you it's Kurt Yue. So, Kurt, let's start off here with the movie. It's Regretting You. What's it about? What is your character in this movie? And what made you take the role? I mean, because there's other stuff here that were probably pitched to you. So what was it about this movie role that you went, okay, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Thanks for having me on here, first of all. And um, you know, it- I tell people all the time, look, I'm certainly not at the stage of my career where I can be very picky about the roles that I take. So I audition for pretty much anything and everything that comes my way. That being said, I certainly am. I do look at things and certain things do pique my interest more than others. And Regretting You is one of those films that, when I looked at who was involved in that project, it had a lot of the same people that were involved in the movie Fault in Our Stars a few years back. So that had a big following, obviously, and then the actors involved in this one, the lead actors are such I'm such big fans of people like Allison Williams and Dave Franco, and getting a chance to work with them was certainly appealing. And so the movie itself, without giving too much away, I mean, people can kind of see from the trailer that there's certainly a family element involved with Allison Williams' character and her daughter, and then a big, I guess, tragedy that happens in the movie that my character is a part of as the doctor that delivers some pretty life-changing news to Allison Williams' character and Dave Franco's character. So uh, that to be a part of a movie like that and to work with some pretty admirable actors was a great experience for me.
Here's the challenge with the movie. The role is basically it's set in stone. Like we've seen when TV where somebody comes on, the famous one is, of course, to me, Justified, where Walter Goggins, it was supposed to be a one episode. And he
Yeah,
kills so much of it. They go, you know what? We're gonna keep you on for the full season, then the full, next season. Next, he is,
sure,
the second big star. So
sure.
for you, how tough is that? Where you want more? I mean, every actor I know, every athlete I know, they want more. But when you take a movie like this, it's like, okay, this is all it's gonna be. We can't write more because the movie's already basically written itself.
Sure. Yeah, the beautiful thing about, I think, as a performer is that if you take your ego out of it and just look at it from the story point of view, like every single, no matter how big or small, every single role in the movie, plays a role, and it's important to telling the story. And if you take any any character out of any of our favorite movies, no matter how small that character is, it changes the movie in some way. So for me, I like to look at it in terms of like, all right, how does this character, this scene, this role affect the story, and just do my part in telling that story. And in in a movie like this, and with the character that I play, it's a pivotal scene in the movie, and I have to, no matter, I can't treat it as a small role, so to speak, right? I gotta treat it and give it every, everything that I have in terms of the belief of the character and of the scene to make it as real as possible, because you got to give that scene and every scene the respect that it deserves. So, you said that actors do want more, and we get more, we get to do more in the volume sometimes of the things that we do in other projects. So uh, even though, like you said, the role in this particular film, may not be the lead of the movie, still being able to play such a pivotal role in a scene that I'm in is still means a lot to me.
You get this a lot once again, we have Kurt Yue, who's also the founder of the Acting Career Center. It's a leading online platform for aspiring actors to navigate through the business side of Hollywood. So you get this all the time, and it probably goes through your mind. Well, how do I get to the next level? I want to get to the next level. I want to be that big. I want to be I want to be the next thing of a star. I want to be I'm not just a bit player on the Black Widow. I want to be like the co-star. I want to be one of the principal actors here.
Yeah.
How tough is that, having patience when Rome wasn't built in a day, and yet you're like, no, we need to do now. How do I do this? And every actor I've talked to, like, it's a process. It's a slow process, but it's a goddamn process.
That's definitely the one of the challenges of this career, is having that patience. And I think obviously one of the hardest parts is, if you start comparing. We've all heard the phrase "comparison is the thief of joy," and there's nowhere where that's more so the case than in the entertainment industry, where it's thrown in your face of the people that are successful, right? Because we're seeing them on TV and in movies. And when you see someone who's like 12 years old who becomes a big star, these kid actors that are on a hit show like Stranger Things, and all of them become stars. You can either look at that and be jealous, or you can look at that as inspiration, in that someone who can have no experience, and they get onto a show and that show becomes a hit. That can happen to anyone. It can happen to me tomorrow. We're certainly not going to bank on it happening, but the way that, if someone's asking, the way that you become a very successful actor is just to stick with it and continue to do it. And if the time comes, the time comes. But people don't like to hear this, but there definitely is a lot of luck in the industry. It's not about like, oh, you just gotta, sitting at home, and at some point you're gonna get lucky. No, you gotta do the work. And if you do the work, at some point, lightning might strike, right? It's not necessarily about, did you get lucky and get the part? It's more about like, did you get the part, and did everybody on that show get lucky and the show becomes a hit, right? Because we all know shows get canceled all the time. A lot of shows only go one season and then it gets canceled because everybody's just, throwing stuff out there and trying to see what sticks. And yet, two actors can each do their jobs and book respective roles on two different shows, and one show becomes a hit, the other's a flop. Those actors didn't really do anything wrong if they both booked their jobs, but one person becomes a star, the other is just like continues to grind away. So you just got to keep doing it and keep doing it, and maybe one of the things that you get turns into something bigger. But there's not really anything that you can kind of control with that, and sometimes depending on the type of person you are, that might be something that's hard to deal with. But there are pros and cons to that, because it can be very exciting in a way too, to know that, hey, this next audition, we don't know anything about this project, but it may turn out to be the next, big thing. So it can certainly be exciting in that respect as well.
There's a lot of politics that goes into acting. I'm not talking, Republican, Democrats. We're staying away from that. But it's like, there are these people who get upset because, oh, wait a minute, you didn't have to go through the theater. You didn't have to go through, Juilliard or all this. You didn't have to earn your keep. And we talked about that. In some ways, you're part of that, because you didn't, you weren't one of these people who want to be an actor your whole life, went to Juilliard. You were a software developer. This
Mm.
became your passion. So in the beginning, how tough was it where people are probably looking at you going, okay, look, how do we know this isn't just a hobby that you're taking this serious? Like, this is my life here. You just walked into it. And they do that to, any other people who come from sports, rep pro wrestling, so, social media, where it's like, wait a minute here. We've been doing this for years. Why the hell should you cut the line?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it certainly happens. And I'm not going to lie about it. In the beginning, it certainly was a hobby. I was working full time in software, and I started taking an acting class just for fun. And even when I got my first agent, when I was living in Ohio, I still had my full time job, and I treated my acting when I was doing that as my side hustle. It was my hobby, and it was if I was making a little bit of money off of it on the side, great. But I wasn't treating it as I wasn't trying to make a career change. So I kind of gradually did more and more of it, gradually continued to get better at it. I continued training and taking classes and stuff. But I certainly wasn't making more of it than I, I guess I wasn't thinking more of myself than maybe anybody else was. And if anybody was thinking that I was cutting the line, they weren't really saying it to my face. And I was lucky to be surrounded by people, both my peers in my acting classes, my coaches and teachers and stuff like that, that were all very supportive and happy for me and my success. Um, but to your point, there are certainly a lot of people out there that do, feel that again, when going back to when we compare, it's the thief of joy. And when you look at this industry, as from especially the actors in this industry, you get people of all walks of life, all ages, people that start when they're babies, and then people that start after they retire from their, you know, a long career doing another job and then get into acting in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, there's a famous story of a woman here in Atlanta who got started at the age of 89. She started acting at the age of 89. And then before she passed at the age of 95, in those 6 or 7 years or so, she booked so many different movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So there's no one right path to success. So when someone says, "Oh, you didn't pay your dues doing theater or going to theater school or this and that," I mean, you don't have to. There's just all these different paths to success, and nobody says that you have to do it one way or the other. And if one person is successful doing it one way, great, fantastic for them. But it doesn't mean that everybody has to follow that exact same path. And again, I go back to the fact that there are just so many. It's one of the things that makes this industry kind of exciting is to know that it's not like medical school where you got to go through these 12 years of a grind in order to get to what you're trying to achieve. You don't have to go through that path. And doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing the work. Continue to do the work, but find your own path and find your own way, and don't let anybody else, kind of get you down just because, they're not able to do it.
Take me to Will Trent because to me, I'm guessing that is when you start. That gave you sort of confidence, like, all right, I can now take this to a career because you start showing up on the first season, and all of a sudden they bring you back, and then there's another season. You start getting a little more and more and more, and all of a sudden going, hey, you're a recurring star here. How much, when you look back at that, do that give you confidence? Like, okay, this acting thing is working. There is, light at the end of the tunnel. There are people
Yeah.
who look at me and go, yeah, we want to work with you on this bigger project, and we want to bring you back repeatedly.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's a great observation, but I will push back and say that it actually started well before that, and it might be surprising to a lot of people, especially people that aren't in the industry, to know that there are many actors like me who aren't movie stars by any stretch of the imagination, but are kind of like working class actors who are making a career out of doing these guest people will say guest star roles or guest roles on TV shows or supporting roles in movies where you have these like smaller parts, but if you're consistently working and doing enough of them and doing, enough of them every year, it adds up to becoming a sustainable career. And add to that doing commercials, and other sort of acting gigs that when you combine it all, you might not have that one gig, that's supporting you 100%, but you add up all of these gigs. It's kind of like, you know, in a way, not a hundred. This isn't the greatest comparison, but I compare it to like an Uber driver's gig work, right? It's not like you're going to make all your money for the day off of one ride, but if you can consistently be getting rides, all right, you add it all up and you're making a decent amount of money. And as an actor, there's a way to also do that without being the star of a project, or without having like what I currently have with Will Trent, which is a consistent supporting role that has been, that's continued on through 4 seasons now. But to your question, I will say that the change that I did see when I booked Will Trent was kind of, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, of that the luck of the industry sometimes is not necessarily booking the job, but what you book. And for me, when I auditioned for the role on Will Trent, there was no guarantee that it was going to be a recurring character over 4 seasons. It was only when I got the audition written as a character that was going to show up on this one episode in season one. And so I got the role, I did the episode, and it just, with nothing that no convincing or anything that I did on my part, or no negotiations on my part, but it just so happened that they continue to write my character into more episodes. And now we're currently shooting season four, and I'm very lucky to continue to work on that show. So it kind of opened my eyes to see what I already believed, in that, if you continue to grind, you continue to do the work, and you continue to treat every audition, no matter how big or small the role, as an opportunity. Even this one episode smaller role that, of a new show that you have no idea what it's going to turn out to be, can eventually become my most consistent gig that I've had in the entirety of my career. But to my point from earlier, I kind of already saw this as a sustainable career even prior to getting Will Trent. This just kind of more solidified it.
I remember once we had Charles Parnell of Top Gun Maverick, The Last Ship, Mission
Mm-hmm.
Impossible, said that, one of the things that helps is when you develop relationships. And for him, it's like, all right, well, he's worked with Michael Bay. Michael Bay trusts him. He knows what he's going to do. So he's on the short list. He gets those phone calls for big projects because they know exactly what they can do. And that's that trust. How do you develop that? How do actors, especially when it's all about relationships sometimes, like, hey, you were in good with Lee Daniels. Hey, you're in good with Kevin Feige. You're in good with Michael Bay. Um, at Peter. At Chris Murphy. Anybody who has lots of projects. Once you get in with them, they'll trust you. Go this. How do you do that? And how tough is it making those connections without sounding like you want something right off the bat?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't treat it like anything. You know, when you talk about networking, sometimes people will associate it with, this really it feels like such an icky term. It feels like such a corporate term of like, all right, you're only trying to meet someone to get something from them. But, if you actually treat it as, truthfully trying to build relationships and trying to meet people and work with people and collaborate, right? It's not about I'm trying to get something from them. It's like, hey, if I like your work and you like my work, hopefully we can work together someday. And if there's a project that comes along that makes sense that we can work together, where, we can collaborate in the sense that it's not all about, hey, you giving me something. It's about, one of the things I love about, the film and television world is that it is a it is probably the most collaborative art form out there, in the sense that you see, when you watch a movie and you actually sit and watch the full roll of credits, you see how many hundreds of people are involved in the creation of that final product, and they all play their roles in creating that. And the fact that I can go collaborate when I look at networking and I go and meet people, because I do believe that that's a big part of this industry. I'm not trying to go out there and try to meet Michael Bay. I'm not trying to go and meet Steven Spielberg. It's just I'm just trying to meet more people in the industry, more people that are other actors, more people that are writers, more people that are producers, and the more people that are in my world or I'm in the world of, the more possibilities that there are chances that when a project comes along and there's a character that I would fit, that that person might think of me. And it has happened before, where I've been straight up offered a role without having to audition. So, and that came from working with a particular producer on a past project, and we worked well together, and she liked my work, and they had a project come up. They just gave my agent a call directly. So, I think doing that organically and doing it without the sense of like just trying to get something from someone can certainly pay dividends.
How often do you sometimes sit and just go, "Wow, this is impressive what he did"? I mean, I was looking here, and once again, we have Kurt Yue, who's worked on Will Trent for 18 episodes, which is a hit show on ABC. You've worked in Vendetta with Bruce Willis and Thomas Jane. You've been on Haunted Mansion. You've worked in The Black Widow, where you shared scenes with William Hurt. Most people don't get to this. I mean, as you said, it's usually just like small roles, sometimes even just community roles, sometimes just even like local TV show roles. I mean, for you, are there ever moments where it's like, oh, I didn't see this happening. I didn't think when I first started this journey from software developer to part-time actor, I'd be working with like big, name actors, Oscar award winning actors, being on a show on ABC where you can name drop people, go, oh, I know that show.
Yeah.
Are there ever moments where the little kid just comes out and goes, this is pretty awesome?
Oh, 100%. And in fact, probably all the time. I mean, I like you said, I started out as a software developer. When I took my first acting class, I wasn't trying to make a career change. I was just looking for something fun to do. And I tell people, look, everything beyond the tiny little local commercial that I did in Cleveland, Ohio, everything beyond that has just been gravy. I've never dreamed of doing this as a kid. I certainly, even as an adult, when I started taking classes, didn't even dream of doing this. And as far as like getting to work with some of these, big names and, Emmy winners, Oscar winners, I was really kind of thrown into the fire really quickly with that. My very, very first television role was on a show called Shots Fired, and that was filmed in North Carolina. This was back in like 2016, I want to say. And my scene, I only had the one scene in the show, and I was a lawyer, and I was in a scene with Richard Dreyfuss and Helen Hunt, two Oscar winners, and me. It was just the three of us that were speaking in that scene. And I can't even tell you how nervous I was during that filming that scene, just to know that I was just like sweating bullets, just like I can't screw up, I can't screw up, not in front of these Oscar winners. And just thinking that just makes me more and more nervous. But the beautiful thing about that was when I got to work on the scene and they were filming, we started shooting the scene. Both Helen Hunt and Richard Dreyfuss at some point in the filming, both of them at some point flubbed a line and had to redo their take. And that just calmed me down so much, just to know that even the big stars make mistakes, and you do another take and you get it. Because I can't imagine if both of them just nailed their scenes on one take and were just so perfect and amazing, and then they turn the camera to me and they're like, all right, your turn. So I got really lucky with that, to be thrown in the fire right away, and to see how the the biggest of big names, Oscar winners, deal with making mistakes because they're just so calm about it. All right, made a mistake, let's do it again, and then they get it. And that has stuck with me, throughout my whole career, and it gives me a lot more confidence, especially the other times where I have been on set with people like you mentioned, like William Hurt, and Bruce Willis, and to know that, all right, this is cool. We're all doing the same thing. I know you're a much bigger name than me, but right now we all are doing the same job, and I can feel a lot more comfortable and confident, doing something like that.
Last two questions, I'll let you go. This has stuck with me whenever I've interviewed either like rising people like Fiona Renee, veteran actors like yourself, Anthony Lemke, Navid Negabani. It's always sacrifices of, hey, I had to live out my car for a couple months to save rent. Hey, I can't see my husband because I'm on one location, he's in another location, and we do a lot of Zoom. Hey, I've had to leave my family for a couple months because I had to travel this place.
Hmm.
What about you? Like, what are some of the things you've had to sacrifice just because, hey, you're shooting Will Trent, so that's in a different location from when you grew up in Ohio, or
Hmm.
hey, you're doing this big budget movie, which Black Widow, which you have to go across the pond. So, like,
Hmm.
what are some of the things you look and go, you want to be an actor? This is what you're going to give up because this is a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the biggest, I guess, sacrifice, but also just for me personally, the what I had to learn about this industry, especially coming from working as a software developer in the corporate world, was that now I'm doing gig work as opposed to having a full-time job, a salaried job, getting a paycheck every couple of weeks, right? Learning how to deal with that and live with that and make that work, because it I leaving when I eventually stopped working my full-time corporate job, that I was at a point in my career making six figures a year as a software developer, to now, like, all right, let me try to make it work with just acting income. um, I went from living in a house, with me and my dog, to now going back to having roommates. Hadn't had a roommate since college, right? So now going back to living with roommates just to save money and all that. So being having the humility to kind of do that, and then kind of learning the way of this career of having to supplement my acting income with other kind of side hustles. And I'll tell you, I don't know any working actor that doesn't have other streams of income. It doesn't matter how big you are, how big of a name you are. I mean, we all know these, like, world-class famous actors that own restaurants, that have like clothing lines and stuff like that. All of that is side hustles. And I've heard some other, really big actors say that even they don't trust their acting income because it's not something that they have full control over. For example, if they have a show, let's just even say Will Trent, for example, fingers crossed that the show continues to run for many seasons, but we don't know. It could get canceled after this next season, right? And for me, and for especially the main cast of the show, like, they're making a lot of money off the show, but it could easily just get cut off immediately. So having other streams of income to kind of balance it out, and learning how to do that, has been a learning process for me throughout these 17 years that I've been an actor. And but it's, again, I'll go back to, it's the exciting part of it, it's the fun part of it, to kind of learn and figure this all out.
Easiest question, simplest question, toughest question. What do you
Sure.
want? I mean, because it's in when I ask that, everybody's like, "Oh, it sounds easy. It wants this and this and this." But when you think of it, it's like, what do you truly want? Like, for everything to go, like, for you. So for you, as you said, you have your teaching classes you do online. You still have software. You're still a software developer, so you can go back to that. You do all these shows and everything. But what do you want? Like, for you, within the next year, next 5 years, like, what do you want in terms of your career, in terms of just your life?
That's it. Let me first say that I definitely could not go back to doing software now. I've been out of it for so long, and software changes so much that I talked to some people. I have a friend here in Atlanta that is currently a software developer, and I asked her about what she does, and I mean, I don't understand it anymore. So I don't think I would be able to go back and get a job in software. I'd probably need to be entry level at if at all. But to your question of what do I want? And thank you for bringing up my acting career center YouTube channel and business and that. What I would love to do is just continue doing. If I can continue having my own acting career in whatever capacity that turns out to be, if it I've told people if I continue to do what I'm currently doing for the next 20 years until I retire or however long it goes until I retire, I'm 100% happy. Like there's no part of me that would consider what I'm doing in acting a failure if I don't become a movie star or anything like that. I know there are some people that think that way, and that's fine. I mean, everybody can have their own specific goals and specific criteria of how they measure their success. But for me, like I said, I everything has been icing on the cake after I took that first acting class. So if I can continue doing what I'm doing and continue to help other actors or other people that are trying to get into this industry and try to like kind of demystify this industry and this career for them and help them in any small way that my teachers were able to help me when I was starting out. That is to me a very fulfilling and successful career in being able to do kind of both sides of it.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we love having on the show. I give you once again from a movie coming out this week, this Friday, Regretting You, and from Will Trent, I give you it is once again actor, teacher, former software developer, thespian, and all around just business entrepreneur. I give you Kurt Yue. So Kurt, once again, where can fans check you out at? Where is the YouTube? Where is the Twitter? Where can fans check out the Acting Career Center? Where are all the projects so we can check them out and also support them?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. You can find my YouTube channel on YouTube. Obviously, Acting Career Center is what it's called. Also, actingcareercenter.com is the website, and I have a bunch of resources and stuff like that actors can download. And as far as my projects, as you mentioned, Regretting You is coming to theaters at the end of this week. I'm actually also going to be guest starring on the iconic show Law and Order SVU this week. So if people are fans of that show, tune in on Thursday night. And Will Trent is currently shooting season 4. Season 4 will premiere on ABC and Hulu in January. So I'm really lucky to have all these things continue to show up in my career. And like I said, fingers crossed that it continues on.
Kurt Yue, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always on a pleasure having you on the show. We come back. A lot more going on here. Only on it's Last Call. Last Call of the Alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com.